Ready, fight!
The announcements were expected by state leaders, but the unwelcome news came as so many of us saw the first snowflakes of the year overnight. If you pay for electricity, your bill is almost certainly going up starting January 1st.
The Maine Public Utilities Commission met yesterday and today to accept bids from power providers who will supply CMP and Versant. The result? For the next year, customers will face a significant rise in rates.
Well, Maine's electricity prices rising at the third fastest rate in the country.
According to the Maine Monitor, between 2014 and 2024, the price of electricity in Maine increased 55%.
Welcome to the Maine Perspective, formerly known as Mainstream Current. I'm still Drew Hoagland, and today I have a question for you. The price of electric power. When is enough for Mainers? For the Maine ratepayer, the arrival of Central Maine Power bill is a moment of recurring, predictable dread. It is a reminder of a fundamental system that feels broken, a monthly tribute paid not for service rendered in good faith, but to a corporate machine that seems to exist in a realm beyond accountability. We are told the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC, is our watchdog, the guardian of just and reasonable rates. We are told that investments are for our benefit. Yet, as of Friday the 13th, June 2025, with rates continuing their relentless climb, the people of Maine are left to ask a single blistering question. When is enough truly enough? The current state of affairs is not an accident. It is the result of a system that has been expertly designed to benefit a distant few at the expense of the many. Let's be clear about the chain of command. A Mainer in Lisbon writes a check to Central Maine Power. CMP is a subsidiary of Avangrid, a publicly traded American corporation. Avangrid, in turn, is majority owned by Iberdrola, a multinational energy conglomerate headquartered in Bilbao, Spain. The profits generated from our escalating electricity bills, from the family in a rustic county struggling to heat their home, to the small business in Portland trying to keep the lights on, do not primarily enrich our communities. They are extracted, flowing across the Atlantic, to satisfy the fiduciary demands of Iberdrola's global shareholders. And let's be clear, it's all because of these crankshafts that you and I are struggling to keep up with electricity rates. Let's dig deep.
Governor Mills wants the Public Utilities Commission to remain the same. Mills says she will renominate Phil Bartlett as chair of the PUC. Bartlett has held the position since 2019. Mills says Bartlett has led the PUC through significant initiatives to strengthen utility oversight and has improved Maine's electric grid. Before Bartlett is officially renominated, the Maine State Senate will have to confirm the decision.
The facade of public protection is maintained by the Maine Public Utilities Commission, established under Title 35A of the Maine Reserved Statutes. The PUC's mandate is to ensure safe, reasonable, and adequate services at rates that are just and reasonable. Yet, in recent history reads like a case study in regulatory capture. Time and again, the PUC has approved rate hikes proposed by CMP, often justifying them as necessary for grid modernization or storm hardening. In early 2024, another increase was approved, with the familiar promises that these investments would eventually lead to greater reliability and stability. We have heard this before. A look back at news archives from 2018, 2020, and 2022 reveals a pattern of press releases from CMP from regulators assuring Mainers that short-term pain would lead to long-term gain. The gain, however, has proven elusive, while the pain has become a chronic condition. A grid paid for in dollars, measured in darkness. The most cynical part of this entire arrangement is that the justification for our financial sacrifice is a promise of reliability that is consistently broken. For the astronomical fees paid by Maine citizens and businesses, we have been promised a hardened, resilient, 21st century grid. What we have received is a system that remains terrifyingly vulnerable to the whims of a Maine winter, a summer thunderstorm, or a gust of wind. The lived experience of Mainers over the past 2 years stands in stark, dark contrast to the glossy reports and boardroom promises of CMP and its parent companies. Let us examine the record, not through the sanitized industry metrics of SAIDI, or System Average Interruption Duration Index, and SAIFI, System Average Interruption Frequency Index, which can both obscure the severity of major events, but through the shared cold reality of widespread outages. The capstone event was the catastrophic storm of December 2023. This was not a blizzard, but a deluge of torrential rain and hurricane-forced wind gusts that fell on unfrozen, saturated ground. The result was a predictable disaster. More than 400,000 CMP customers, well over half of its entire customer base, were plunged into darkness. The outage was not a matter of hours, but of days. For thousands, it stretched for the better part of a week, turning the holiday season into a grim, cold wait. Families spent Christmas in the dark. Businesses lost critical pre-holiday revenue, and the promise of a storm-hardened grid was exposed as a hollow marketing slogan. The parade of failures continued into April 2024 with a classic late-season nor'easter. This storm brought heavy, wet, heart attack snow that clung to budding trees and power lines alike. The result was, again, predictable. Snapping limbs and falling trees severed lines across the state, knocking out power to over 150,000 customers. While restoration was quicker than the December debacle, it has still left communities in the dark for 48 to 72 hours, a frustratingly common occurrence for a predictable Maine weather event. Even mundane weather now seems to pose an existential threat to the grid we have paid so dearly to modernize. A fast-moving line of thunderstorms in August 2024 left 60,000 customers without power. While many were restored within 24 hours, these increasingly frequent outages represent a death by 1,000 cuts, eroding confidence and demonstrating a systemic fragility. Mainers are now conditioned to expect outages not just from a major blizzard, but from a strong summer squall. The winter of 2024 to 2025 brought its own litany of outages, culminating in a powerful blizzard in January 2025 that, despite being forecasted for days, still managed to sever power to nearly 200,000 homes and businesses. Each time this happens, the cycle is the same. The outage, the slow crawl of restoration map on CMP's website, the eventual restoration, and finally, the arrival of another exorbitant bill to pay for the system that failed. The question is no longer if the power will go out, but for how long. This is not the reliability Mainers were promised, nor is it the reliability for which they have paid. It is a fundamental breach on the contract between the utility and the people it is mandated to serve. But let's hear directly from the PUC themselves. How does it all work?
Here's something interesting about your electric bill. Your bill includes two primary components, delivery rate and supply rate. The supply rate is the price of electricity. The delivery rate is the cost of bringing that electricity from a power station to the grid and then to your home. Part of that delivery rate is federally regulated, and the other part is regulated by the Maine Public Utilities Commission. To learn more about how your rates are regulated and other aspects of your electric bill, visit the link here.
The financial mechanics of this arrangement are particularly galling. Mainers pay for the system twice. First, through our ever-increasing rates, we fund the capital improvements to the grid. CMP then takes these ratepayer-funded investments, add them to their asset base, and earns a guaranteed rate of return. A profit margin set by the PUC on that investment. Second, as federal and state taxpayers, we subsidize the very corporate entities charging us more. These massive infrastructure projects qualify for significant tax deductions and credits, effectively reducing the corporation's tax burden. So, we pay more for electricity, which funds projects that allow the company to pass less in taxes, all while they're guaranteed a profit on the money we gave them. It is a masterfully crafted loop of public expense for private profit. The fresh insult, a state-sanctioned shakedown. And just yesterday, as if to provide a timely and cynical answer to our question, when is enough enough? The Maine Public Utilities Commission delivered its verdict. In a move that can only be described as a slap in the face to every Maine ratepayer, the regulators, in a unanimous decision, approved yet another rate hike for Central Maine Power. The ink is barely dry on the Bangor Daily News article from Friday, June 13th, 2025, but the impact is already being calculated in kitchens and small businesses across the state. Let us be clear about what this decision means. The average residential customer, already burdened by some of the highest electricity costs in the nation, will see their monthly bill increase by approximately $9.50 a month. While this may be dismissed by those in powers as a modest sum, it amounts to over $110 a year, extracted from the budget of every Maine family. For a senior on fixed income, that is a prescription copay. For a young family, it is a new pair of winter boots for a growing child. For our state as a whole, this modest increase translates into an additional annual tribute of nearly $100 million delivered directly to the coffers of CMP and its foreign owner, Iberdrola, and the shareholders in Qatar. The justification offered for the latest fleecing is the same tired refrain we have heard for years. The article reports that CMP argued the funds were necessary for continued grid modernization and storm hardening. This is an insult to our collective memory. That is the same grid that failed catastrophically in December 2023, the same grid that cannot withstand a predictable April nor'easter or a summer thunderstorm. We are being forced to pay yet again for a promise of reliability that the utility has proven it is incapable of providing. The PUC, those POSs, for its part, engaged in its well-rehearsed charade of due diligence, claiming it had scrutinized the request and reduced it from CMP's initial proposal. This is not a victory for ratepayers. It is a negotiation between a corporation and its willing partner. The role of the PUC is not to get a better deal on a bad bargain. It is to mandate to ensure rates are just and reasonable. As even Maine Public Advocate William Harwood stated in the article, this decision is deeply disappointing and a significant blow to Maine families and small businesses who cannot absorb these endless increases. When the state official representative for ratepayers declares the decision a blow, the PUC claims of protecting the public ring hollow. This is not a regulation. It is a state-sanctioned transfer of wealth from the pockets of Mainers to the balance sheets of multinational corporations. Enough was enough years ago. Yesterday's decision was simply the latest verse in a sad, familiar song of betrayal. The triumvirate in the ivory tower. So, who are the individuals who wield this immense power? Who is the tribunal that, from their offices in Hollowell, can unilaterally decide to extract another $100 million from the people of Maine? They are not elected officials, accountable to a ballot box. They are the three commissioners of the Public Utilities Commission, and their recent decision demands the harshest scrutiny of who they are and how they came to sit in judgment of us all. I'm talking to you directly, Public Utilities Commission. I'm familiar with all three of you, and I'm going to make it so that all Mainers are familiar with who you are as individuals and the corrupt nature of your souls. Let us pull back the curtain on the triumvirate. The commission is chaired by Philip L. Bartlett II, a veteran of the Augusta establishment with a long history in the Maine Senate. His appointment is a classic example of the political ecosystem that nurtures these outcomes. While his supporters would point to his experience in state government, critics see a career politician steeped in the culture of compromise with power. While his supporters would point to his experience in state government, critics see a career politician steeped in the culture of compromise with powerful, well-funded corporate interests. His term isn't set to expire until March of 2027, leaving him years to preside over the continued financial bleeding of Maine taxpayers. Alongside him sits Patrick Scully, a commissioner whose entire professional life has been immersed in the world of energy law and policy. Before his appointment, he worked for a law firm and consulting group that advised energy companies. This is not to question his intelligence, but to question his perspective. Can an individual whose career was built on navigating the complex legal and financial frameworks that benefit utilities ever truly serve as a disinterested regulator for them? Or does he inherently speak their language and see the world through their lens of market forces and shareholder returns? His term runs until March 2029. The third vote in yesterday's unanimous decision came from Carrie Gilbert. Her expertise in energy markets and finance, a background that prioritizes economic modeling and system efficiency. But the models that look efficient on a spreadsheet often translate into hardship in the real world. The relentless focus on market mechanics and financial viability for the utility can obscure the fundamental mandate of the PUC to ensure justice and reasonability for the public. When a family has to choose between electricity and groceries, complex financial models offer no comfort. Commissioner Gilbert was just reappointed to a new term that extends to March of 2031, cementing this commission's philosophy for the unforeseeable future. Obviously, I meant for this foreseeable future. I'm just distraught. This brings us to the most important question. Are they acting lawfully, and can they be stopped? Legally, the commissioners are protected by the broad, almost nebulous language of their mandate. Title 35A of the Maine Revised Statutes requires them to ensure rates are just and reasonable. This is a subjective standard, and courts give immense deference to the balance. But the people of Maine know better. A system that produces endless rate hikes, shareholder profits, and unreliable service is self-evidently unjust and unreasonable. They may be following the letter of the law, but they are profoundly violating the spirit and betraying the public trust. So, can we get rid of them? The legal bar for removal by the governor is extraordinarily high, reserved for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. This is a difficult charge to prove. The true path to accountability is political. It involves relentless public pressure on the governor who appoints them and the legislative committee that confirms them. It means that when a term expires, the public must demand a new nominee with a demonstrated history of advocating for consumers, not a resume that reads like a utility company's wish list. The power to remove them may be legally constrained, but the power to prevent their reappointment and to demand a different kind of commissioner is very real. The fight is not just about a single rate hike. It's about reclaiming the commission itself. This systemic failure is not without its political dimensions. Governor Janet Mills' administration has faced criticisms for its perceived closeness to the incumbent utility. Her initial veto of a bill that would have sent the Pine Tree Power referendum to the voters, a citizen-led initiative to replace CMP and Versant with a consumer-owned utility, was seen by many as a clear signal of her allegiance. While the governor's office would argue its position was based on fiscal prudence and the potential risks of the buyout, a significant portion of the electorate viewed it as protecting a powerful corporate ally over the expressed will of tens of thousands of petitioners. The subsequent and narrowly defeated Pine Tree Power referendum in 2023 laid bare the deep divisions in our state. The No campaign, funded by tens of millions of dollars from Avangrid, successfully sowed doubt and fear, particularly in more rural and conservative areas, while coastal and more progressive regions largely supported the change. This exposed a critical political reality. While the frustration with CMP is nearly universal, the consensus on a solution is fractured. A division that a skilled political operative can either exploit or seek to bridge. The question of who benefits is painfully clear. Iberdrola and its shareholders benefit. The executives at Avangrid and CMP, with their multi-million-dollar compensation packages, benefit. The lobbyists and consultants who spend lavishly in Augusta to maintain the status quo benefit. Who loses? The Maine people. The elderly woman on a fixed income who must choose between medication and keeping the heat on. The young family whose dream of home ownership is made more difficult by ever-rising utility costs. The local business whose competitiveness is eroded by high overhead. When is enough enough? It is enough when the lights flicker out during a moderate storm after we have paid billions for reliability. It is enough when another rate hike is announced with the same tired excuses. It is enough when our public regulator acts more like a business partner to the utility than a protector of the public. For any individual aspiring to serve the people of Maine, the issue is not merely a policy debate. It is a question of sovereignty and justice. The challenge is to articulate a new path forward, one that ends the extractive model of foreign ownership and puts the power, both literally and figuratively, back into the hands of the people of Maine. The frustration is palpable and bipartisan. The leader who can successfully channel that anger not into a divisive fight, but into a unified demand for a system that serves its citizens first, will find a clear path to leadership. The time for platitudes is over. Enough is now. That's all just my opinion, though. What do you think? Is the PUC acting just and reasonable? Or do we need to start putting heavy pressure on them? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I look forward to engaging with you there. And as always, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, this is now the Maine Perspective, and I'm Drew Hoagland. I'll see you in the next video, y'all.
Ready, fight!